let's start today's episode. Here is something that has never quite stopped bothering me. The same teacher, the same room, same words spoken into the same air at the same hour of the same morning. And yet, years later, the people who were sitting in that room are nowhere near each other. One of them has quietly transformed. One is still trying, still sleeping, still started again on Monday, and one stopped coming altogether and could not really tell why. Nothing was withheld from any of them. So, welcome to Era of Supreme Peace. I am Mona, and today it is just me with one teaching from Bapuji Dasharat Bhai Patel. That answers this question with an honesty. Honestly, most teachings avoid. So, Bapuji uses a word here that sounds almost administrative in English. He says number wise. He says God Himself comes, God gives special sustenance not to everyone but to the few. And among those few, to fewer still, special love, special cooperation, special power. And then he says the thing that makes the whole teaching turn. Even so, the children still become number wise. Now, I want to be careful with this because number wise can sound like a ranking, like a scoreboard, like some souls were favored and others were not. That is not what is being described here. So, what is being described is what happens when the same rain falls on different ground. The sky is not choosing. The sky is pouring evenly over everything. But one field has been prepared, and one field is half prepared, and one is still like a stone. And try autumn. They do not look the same. And it was never the rain's mistake. So I find that clarification very, very interesting. It is clarifying rather than being harsh because it means the variable is not God's affection. The variable is us. So Bapuji describes three kinds of children, and I think most of us can find ourselves somewhere in this. The first are the ones who keep the elevated direction provided by the Supreme Father, 100% in their mind and intellect. Bapuji describes them in a phrase, I keep turning over, the Father alone is their world. So not the Father and their world, the Father as their world. And because of that, their attention is fully on themselves, not on other people's progress, not on other people's faults, on their own. And their transformation, Bapuji always says, is happening rapidly. These are the ones he calls the jewels worn at the forehead, seated on the heart throne. Jewels made of light, the ones who fulfill the Father's hopes. And then the second now. And this is the now I want to spend real time in, because I think it is where most of us actually live. These children also have attention on themselves. They have the same single longing, I have to become like the Father. They mean it. It's not a pose, but sometimes the intellect wanders off towards the world. Sometimes the old sanskars, old impressions, the old grooves, the old temperament simply win. And so their life becomes a long practice of reconnecting, losing the line and finding it again, losing it and finding it again. And now, if you have ever been in that row, you know exactly how it feels. It feels like failure with extra steps. It feels like you are the unreliable one. Listen to what Bapuji says about them. Bapuji says, even so, the father loves these children very much, and they become the garland around the father's neck, the beads of the rosary of remembrance. I want to sit with that image because it is doing something precise. A rosary bead is not a bead in spite of being handled over and over. That is what a rosary is. It is the thing you return to. The whole purpose of the object is repetition, the coming back. So, the very quality this row is ashamed of, I keep having to start again, is the exact quality that puts them in that father's hand. Every single day, the repetition is not the evidence of your failure, it might be the shape of your devotion. And now we come to the third. Why the third row stops? These children also want it. They genuinely wish to make effort. They would tell you, sincerely, I want to become like the Father, but they are defeated very quickly. And Bapuji doesn't leave us guessing about the reason. He asks it and answers it in the same breath. Why? Because there is no detachment from the world. We call it Vairagya in Hindi. They still have many desires. And more specifically, there is still the expectation of receiving from the world. So these are the desires and the expectations. That is the sharper diagnosis than it first sounds. The problem is not that they love the world. It is that they are still submitting applications to it, still waiting on it to deliver the recognition, the security. The person who finally understands them, the season where things settle down. And you cannot be filled by God while you are still holding the cup under a different tap. Bapuji says these children have one line, they always say one sentence. You cannot possibly keep connecting, keep yoga going all day long. And honestly, that sentence is so reasonable. I have said versions of it. Who has the hours? Who has the stillness? There is work. There are people. There is a phone. But Bapuji stops here and asks a question back. But children, what is yoga? Do you actually understand? And this is the center of the whole topic. If you take one thing from this episode, take this. Bapuji says yoga is love. Connection is love. It's not a posture, it's not a technique, not a schedule block of concentration that you either complete or fail to complete. Love, which at this time is to be given to the one alone. And do you see what that does to the objection? Because the complaint is, I cannot sustain it all day, assumes yoga is an effort and nobody can sustain effort all day. That is true. That is not a spiritual falling. It's not a spiritual failing. That is biology. But nobody asks whether they can sustain love all day. When you love someone, you are not straining to remember them. They are simply the background of the day. You go to work, you handle 100 things, and they never actually left. Bapuji is saying that is the relationship, not a practice you to perform, a person you are with. It's a very deep point. And then Bapuji tells us how complete it is meant to be. The happiness of every relationship, the happiness of every comfort, every possession, every beautiful thing, all of it to be experienced from the Father alone. Not renounced, sourced differently. And he says that placed beside that happiness, that bliss, that contentment, whatever the world hands you is worth about as much as dust. I will be honest, that is a big claim, and I do not think it is meant to be believed on trust. I think it is meant to be tested. Because Bapuji immediately says, it takes a little time, done with firm determination. That is the whole entry fee. Not years of austerity, a short stretch. A short stretch held firmly. And then the more you keep the Father connected to you, the sooner the attainments begin. And once the attainments begin, everything becomes effortless. That is the sequence. And I think we usually get it backwards. We want to feel it before we commit. But Bapuji is describing the opposite order. The firmness comes first for a while in the dark, then the experience arrives. And once the experience arrives, you are not disciplining yourself anymore. You are just going where you had rather be. So, effort is what it cost at the beginning. It is not what it cost forever. And then, so nobody misunderstands what is being asked. Bapuji anchors the whole thing in ordinary life. Stay in household life, do every task, all of it, the job, the family, the responsibilities, the errands. But do it with a 100% surrendered intellect. Stay detached. Do it in the remembrance of the one who acts and causes action. And then he says the line I had framed on a wall. Then the Father is responsible for you. If you stay in detachment, keep 100% faith, 100% surrender everything to one and stay in remembrance of one, then you start seeing the Father is responsible for you. Not then nothing difficult happens. Not then you get what you ask for. Then the weight of it is no longer sitting on you alone. You are doing the work, you are not carrying the outcomes. So, there is one more thing in this teaching, and I'm not going to soften it because Bapuji doesn't. He says, decide for yourselves. which number you want to come in. And keep this in remembrance even at the final hour, because that scene, he says, will be terrifying, full of anguish, full of complete regret. That is a very heavy sentence, and I understand why some people flinch at it. But I do not hear it as a threat. I hear it as the one honest thing nobody says at dinner parties. There is a last day, and on it, the things we were choosing to postpone will be finished being postponable. The regret Bapuji is describing is not punishment, it is just arithmetic finally becoming visible. Everything we were given next to everything we did with it. Everything we were given, everything we did with it. He is not telling us that to frighten us. He is telling us now, while there is still time to change the total. So let me gather it. The rain falls evenly. What differs is the ground. Some souls make the Father their entire world and move fast. Some keep losing the thread and finding it again and again, and are loved so specifically for that returning that they become the beads of the rosary. And some stop early, not because the teaching was too hard, but because they were still waiting on the world to pay. So, the objection that stops most of us: I cannot hold connection all day, I cannot hold yoga all day, dissolves the moment you find out that yoga or connection was never a task, it was love. So, here is the experiment I would like to offer for this week. One thing: take a single ordinary duty, something you would do anyways, just like preparation of a food or the commute, a message you owe someone, and do that one thing in remembrance. Not longer, not slower, not more spiritually, the same task with the Father in the room. Feel the presence of the Supreme Father with you. And then notice whether it felt like something added to your day or something taken off your shoulders. And if you are in the second row this week, if you have lost the thread again and you are embarrassed about how many times that makes it, I had just remind you what a rosary is for. So thank you so much for spending this time today. Whatever number you are in today, the hand holding the garland has not put it down. So keep trying. Listen to this. Take one thing with you and bring it in practical. See you next time. Param Shanti. Have a wonderful day. Supreme peace.